Nice dramatic way to start the new year. Man, that music was intense. I was just like, all right, we're going places today. I'm ready to go. Hey, I'm super glad to be here with you today. Happy New Year. If we haven't met yet, my name is Jesse, and I'm one of the pastors here at our city church. And I get to kick off a brand new series of talks for us today called Get Your Life Back. I don't know if you could tell, we had pictures and stuff up, so Get Your Life Back. And it's going to be a great series of talks together. It's all inspired from a book by the same title. I would encourage you guys on your own, go pick that book up. There's going to be some great resources in it. The topics we're going to cover for the next couple weeks are inspired by that content, and it's going to be great to get into it. But as we came into a new year, as so many of us do, my wife Bridget and I, we paused and we kind of considered just reflecting over the last couple years and how crazy things have been, and just the wild couple years that we've all come through, and just started to think through, man, for me personally, what new things did I have to learn? Like Zoom. Before a couple years ago, I had no idea. I knew Skype, right? I Skyped with my grandparents, and it was like this whole beep boop, beep boop, beep boop thing. And then all of a sudden you're connected. And then I had to figure out, how do I now run a staff of people off of Zoom? What does that look like? It's expensive. I got to figure that thing out. The whole while figuring out, how do I manage a staff meeting? Any of you guys been there? Manage a staff meeting while you got a kid in the background who's hungry, just like, hey, feed me. Don't forget I'm over here. You just got other people, like spouses in the home, both having meetings at the same time. And you're like, okay, you go to that room. I'm going to go to that room, but that room's too far away from the Wi-Fi, so I got to go back over there. It's just like, we had to learn how to do a lot. Not only that, we had to figure out how to change different things that we did. I remember when my gym shut down, and I had to figure out, man, how am I gonna stay healthy and get blood flow and dopamine, the whole thing, the runner's high. How am I gonna make sure I keep this thing going? So I went on Amazon to look up dumbbells, and the price of dumbbells just skyrocketed, right? Like a normal, I'm a nerd, so I spent days researching this. My wife will tell you. And mostly on the toilet, so it works out okay. I wasn't too distracted. So I probably shouldn't have said that. Hey, online, glad to have you here today. So I figured out an average price for a dumbbell, it's gonna be about $1.50 per pound. That's a really good price if you can find a used dumbbell. And these things are going for $4 or $5 a pound. It was ridiculous. I'm that's not gonna work. I'm gonna have to do body weight workout or Craigslist or something. And then within a matter of a week, as soon as gym members got that email, hey, we're opened up again, come on back, the prices just plummeted again. And everybody's trying to sell their garage gym. They're I don't need this anymore. I'm done with that. One of the things that Bridget and I did in that quarantine era of our lives, this is pre-Charlotte, pre our baby girl, right? So we had time and sleep. It was amazing. And we decided, both of us came from families where we kind of dabbled in gardening. We both grew up with, our parents had green thumbs, and we just had some experience. Oh man, it'd be super fun to let's plant a garden. Let's do the whole thing. It'd be great to have a garden and the hobby and the whole deal. But not only that, we can maybe save some money on our grocery bills and just live off the fruit of the land. How great is that gonna be? And you know me, I love a good project, start, stop, anything that I can put my hands to, and within a couple days stand back and be yes, look at this thing I've created. I did this. This is my construction. I built it. Here it is. I'm proud of it. That's just, I don't know, there's a wiring in me. Maybe it's because I do a lot of emails and Bible study and things that are kind of they don't really have an end to them. But a project, it's start, stop, it's done. Okay, cool. So we went through the whole process of making this garden. We found the plot in the back of we have a tiny little apartment, but there's a strip that tends to get more light than the rest of the strip of grass that we have. And so we carved this thing out. We got cement blocks, and we got these 2 strips of land that we were gonna have for our garden. And I started tilling the soil. I got a shovel and a rake from the hardware store, and just getting this thing all going. And then we went all in. We went to the local grower and got sprouted seeds to plant. We started composting. Y'all, we went deep with the compost. If you've ever composted, you know you got to deal with the fruit flies and the whole thing. And we went there, right? And so here's some pictures of like the beginning of the garden. The thing started taking off. It was great. We had healthy soil. We had plants growing up. I think this was like some, we planted some like Anaheim peppers. I can't handle jalapenos. Anaheim is the max. So we planted Anaheim peppers, some salad. It was going great. We got a whole nother section of the yard with over here we had like different gourds. We had pumpkins growing in the top right there. And then we had some zucchini planted, tomatoes, like butternut squash. Like, come on, all the best vegetables, right? We were so stoked about it. This thing started growing and sprouting and getting bigger. And it was amazing to see, like in a very short amount of time. Let's go to the next picture. This thing just took off. Couple things. I didn't realize how big the plants were going to grow. And so I didn't recognize proper spacing that the plants needed. Then I didn't recognize that some plants needed like a trellis to climb up. And so let's show the next picture. We started having to figure out how to like support them and do the whole thing. And it went really well for a little while. And we got some pictures of like the actual produce, the fruit that we started to grow. There's like some tomatoes growing there. You can see how this thing evolved over time. I had to build more and more ways of managing the growth that was coming. We got tomatoes. There's a pumpkin. Like we started growing peppers. Let's go to the next few pictures. Yeah, look at all this. We grew that. That was ours. Go to the next one. This right here. This is the first like harvest of our home. Guys, that was a lovely salad that we had that night with dinner, all right? And we felt so proud of this thing that we did, and it was going amazing, right until it didn't. And honestly, like as we went through quarantine, as we went through things, life just got a little bit complex. And so we started being a little bit more distracted with our time, with our energy. And then one morning we came out and we saw this like gross white mildew that started growing on the leaves. It's just disgusting. Like right here, you can see it's like moldy. Let's go to the next picture. It just started browning. There's bug bites. It's just getting nasty. Let's go to the next one. Nobody wants to see my thumbnail. This is what I'm talking about. This moldy white stuff went through everything. We had this like luscious pumpkin vine that was growing, and overnight the thing just went meh, just flat. Let's go to the next one. It shows how terrible. Look at how wilted everything is. We got a couple zucchini there, but the zucchini would grow. Like you would see the fruit and then it would just die. Just so sad. It's like, oh man, that didn't actually grow to fruition. Like it wasn't even ready to harvest. The garden went really, really well when we had just the garden to take care of, right? Like there wasn't that much going on. But then life just got exponentially more complex. Right? I didn't understand that plants, like they needed space and air to grow, and we bunched it all up way too close together. We definitely didn't prune enough. Like we didn't pull off the unhealthy fruit so the healthy fruit could grow. Like some of you are nodding. You're like, oh yeah, I'm a gardener. I got the green thumb. I know. Others of you should be taking notes. Like, oh, you should space them about 2 feet apart so that they get sunlight and air, and then you prune and the whole thing. They couldn't breathe. Then the bugs came in, and we just got all these nasty bugs that would burrow into the roots and kill the plant at the base. The mold happened. We ended up getting a bunch of mice and possums in our little apartment. We'd come out and find this butternut squash. It grew. And then there's little teeth marks on the back. It's like, what? I don't think I can eat that now. That's kind of gross. And then, like, the mother of all things, pun intended, we got pregnant. And it was just like, all right, well, this isn't going to happen anymore because this is happening, and this is where all the energy needs to go, obviously. And so this garden was a great idea until it wasn't, until we got pregnant, until all the mess of gardening the demands of the garden. Like, I had to concoct these elixirs to like spray on the plants to try to heal and revitalize them. And it was so much. The church started to get back together. We started doing events together as a community of people, right? Like, things started opening up again. And we got complex. Our lives got busy. And it just happened. And we've all experienced this in some way. Like, you and I, we've experienced this the same way that my plants in my garden went through that life cycle. Our lives seem to get more complex, more busy, just more, right? There's just more every day. It seems like there's never a time when it's like you can actually take something off. There's always just like, for one thing you might remove, there's two to be added on. It's like, oh, okay, well, let's reprioritize the budget. Let's like cut back on maybe soccer. Like, let's like do this and we'll do that. But then 3 new things come up, and they're not all bad things. Sometimes they're really good things, right? Like, the complexity isn't just negative. Sometimes it's like, oh, I got a promotion. I got like a new job interview. Like, there's a new opportunity. Like, there's these new things that are coming up. There's a new school. Like, we moved to a new town. Sometimes the things are like really tragic and really hard, and they take your breath away. There's the really good things that happen, then there's the really bad things that are just make your heart stop. You lose a job, you lose a relationship, like you lose a loved one. And sometimes it's like there's just new ways to navigate things. There's like there's the new news cycle that's happening. Like, oh, this thing is now all the world cares about is that one topic. Or there's the election that happened. It's like, oh, okay, I got to give all my energy to go figure out this thing. Or there's like the tragedy that happened that's being broadcast everywhere. Or there's the celebrity gossip. You got to love the celebrity gossip. I got to go figure out the backstory of why he did that and she did this, and now they're together. What? There's just these things that like take our time, they take our energy, they take our focus, and pretty soon we just end up withered, wilted, just unwell as people. And as I was preparing for this, I did a little bit of research, and there's a study I found that talked about the state of mental health from 2021, like today. And let me read some of these stats to you. It's crazy. On average, people spend about $287 per month on maintaining their mental health. That doesn't include the gym, and it doesn't include doctor's appointments. That's just on other stuff. If you add in the gym as like a mental health practice and doctor's appointments and medications and different things like that, it spikes to $472 every month that individuals are spending to manage their mental health. And that's good. That's a positive thing. It's good that people are being proactive to manage it, but you got to look at some of the things that people are using to manage it. Here we go. The voices, 53% of people said that streaming services are key to managing their mental health. Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix. They said, not that it's just like they use it to handle it, but it's key, it's vital. This is how I stay sane, is I get to see Encanto. Let's talk about Bruno. 43% of people use food to improve their mental health. That's me for sure. My wife will tell you, I need a little sweet in the house. I need like those little bags of the Trader Joe's like peanut butter cups. I'll just crush the whole thing. I'm just like, yes, I feel more mentally healthy now. 75% of people emotionally spend, and the average expenditure of that emotional spending is $115. That's a one-time purchase of like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go emotionally take care of myself. Let me go buy that thing. Let me go get that. Let me go get that new tool I need for the garage so I can be better like with projects. You know, I love my projects. Like, let me go buy that bag. Let me get a new backpack. Let me get that jacket. Ooh, those new shoes are sick. Let me do that. Let me get that upgrade for my car. Whatever. I feel emotionally better now because I just have less money. What? Then you go into the world of social media, right? On average, people spend, this is a report from 2021, people spend 2.5 hours a day on social media. Now, I need us to be honest for a moment in this room. that's average, right? You take the sum of everybody, add it together, and divide it by the number, right? So you might be like, oh man, that's a lot. Somebody else right next to you is like, that's not that much. That is an average of people. 2.5 hours a day on social media. Like, that's wild. One way that we use social media to handle our mental health is through like affirmation seeking. It's like I was talking about earlier. When you work out, dopamine is released into your system and you get that runner's high. There's like you just feel good afterwards. We get that same trigger when we're on social media and somebody likes our picture. Ooh, I posted a new picture of my garden. Go like it. Ha ha. Or somebody comments or shares or like new follows or whatever. I'm just like, oh, I feel great about myself now. My mental state is top notch. The other way, there's actually a new definition that was invented. The other way that we get caught up in social media is through something called doom scrolling. Let me read this definition to you. This is a newly coined phrase. It says this: the practice of obsessively checking online news for updates, especially on social media feeds, with the expectation that the news will be bad, such that the feeling of dread from this negative expectation fuels a compulsion to continue to look for updates in a self-perpetuating cycle of bad and dread and doom. And it's that thing where you're just, wow, I'm doom scrolling. Oh, it gets worse. Oh, I thought it was bad, but it gets even worse. Oh, did you see this? Oh, did you know that it got this bad? Did you know that this happened? That's what we're giving our lives to. That's the complexity. That's the stuff that is taking us and leaving us unhealthy. We were never meant to absorb the level of noise, the trauma, the level of demands on our time, the attention, all the things that our world presents to us day in and day out for us to partake in. We were not designed to handle all of that stuff. It just doesn't work. And I think if we were having a real honest conversation, just you and me over coffee, you'd probably agree with me and we'd both be like, yeah. I'd ask you, how's it going? And you'd be like, it's not really working for me. Kind of looking for a new way. Well, today, we're gonna start this series, and for the next few weeks, we're gonna talk about some key principles on how you and we can get our lives back. Like, I have a memory of what my life was like in a more simpler time. And today, it is not that way. But if we will lean in and if we'll implement some of these biblical truths and practices, we will actually be able to get our lives back, to feel more in control, to feel like we actually have a chance to be able to tackle the things that are in front of us. And here's the reality is, like, you and I are not the first person to deal with this. And you might be like, it's a pandemic problem. It's not a pandemic problem. It's not a quarantine problem. It's not a millennial problem. It's not a boomer problem. We are talking about a human problem. People have been dealing with this for a long time. And thankfully, we're going to look at a portion of scripture today, John 15, and Jesus gives us instructions on how to manage this truth. He told it to his disciples. In this chapter, it comes in this chunk of verses, chapters, I think it's like 13, 14, and 15. Jesus is kind of going into his farewell address. He's like getting his affairs in order because he just finished washing the disciples' feet. Now he's spending time. He's like, hey, you're going to deny me. You're going to reject me. This is going to happen. He's just being brutally honest with people because he knows in a very short time, he is going to be given over to death and the cross. So he's like, hey, you need to know these key truths and these key realities. I want you to understand the relationship that I have with my Father, and I want you to understand that you have access to that relationship as well. I want you to know that when I leave, there's gonna be somebody else that comes in my place and it's gonna be better for you. You're gonna feel sad, but you shouldn't feel sad. You should actually be stoked because it's gonna be like every one of you get to have Jesus next to you all the time. And so this is how you should manage the reality of your life. And then he breaks it into an analogy because it was really complex. And so he's like, hey, let me break it down for you. John 15:1, it says this: I am the true vine and my Father is the gardener. Now he says something key there, the true vine. So if you were a good Bible reading Jew, you would understand, if you were from the Hebrew culture, you would understand that the vine was always an analogy of the people of Israel, the nation of Israel, the Hebrews. They were the ones who were going to be fruitful from the promise that God had for them. Now Jesus is saying, no, I'm the true vine, meaning I'm the one who allows that promise for the nation of Israel. Everybody has access because I'm the true vine. My Father is the gardener. So there's a relationship. There's two parts to play in this. Verse 2, he cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes. So you're going to notice right away, there's two options. Get cut or get pruned. And you, like me, might be like, okay, Jesus, what's the third option here? Because neither of those sound pleasant. Here's the reality. Like my garden, you have to go in and relentlessly take care of things so that it can be healthy and bear fruit. Otherwise, if you try to go third option of let's just see how it turns out. We saw how it turned out in my garden. You see how it's turning out in your life, in my life. We understand how there is no third option. Get cut or get pruned. Those are the options. What's the point? He continues on. Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. And just like my garden, sometimes these plants, they would produce fruit, but then the fruit wouldn't come to completion. It would wither and die because there was too much going on. And what he's saying is, no. We're going to cut off some dead stuff. We're going to cut off some things that are just getting in the way. They're not even bad. They're just in the way. We're going to prune some things back so that what? You can bear, what's the word? More fruit. This isn't a punishment. God's not mad at you. He's not trying to inflict pain on your life. He's actually trying to support you so that the things that are deep within you that you are passionate about, that it can be even more fruitful. That you can bear more fruit, more of the things that are in your desire that God put there of oh man, this is what I always dreamed, my family, my life, my business. I dreamt it would be like this. God's like, that's really good. I want it to be even more than that. I have a vision and a dream for something even higher than what you do. Verse 3, you are already clean because of the words I have spoken to you. Jesus is saying, he's like, hey, all these words I've spoken to you, I've prepped you for the pruning. You're ready. You understand the principles. I've spent the whole book of John up to this verse explaining to you how to live your life and what you should do and not do. And if you just apply those things, you've already been cleaned and ready for pruning. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. You cut that branch off and put it over here, it's not going to grow anything. It's got to be connected to something. The branch must be connected to a vine of some sort. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. Jesus speaking to his disciples. Jesus is speaking to the connection that he desires to have with us and that we should fight to keep with him. Because here's the reality. Remain in me. That it's key to understand how the verse is structured. As I remain in you. It's backwards. It's okay, if I connect to God, he'll connect to me. No. You're reading it wrong. As I also remain in you. I'm already remaining. Jesus is already here. He's already available. He's already wanting connection and relationship. He's already wanting to feed life into you. And he's just saying, if you'll remain in me, I'm already there. I'm just waiting on you. Those of you in the room that think oh man, I've got too much mildew and dust and mites and pests. I got too much in my life. God doesn't like me anymore. He's mad at me. It's just not working out. The truth is, he is ready and available for you. Wherever you're at, whatever place you find yourself in life, he's just all right, I'm ready when you're ready. Let's go. Let's go on this journey together. We can't sustain health. We can't sustain fruit. We can't grow. We can't be apart from the vine and try to produce all those things. We have to remain connected. Now, here's the reality. There are counterfeit sources of life. There's false vines. I know that because there's a true vine. So if there's a true vine, there must be false vines, right? And we can try to remain in social media and see how doom scrolling produces fruit in our lives. We can try to remain in our overspending and see what fruit that produces in our lives. We can try to remain in our overeating and our hobbies. We can try to remain in our streaming services because apparently that produces so much fruit in our lives. We can try to remain in all those things, but the reality is those are counterfeit. They're false. They are not going to produce real fruit in your life that is sustaining or long-lasting in any sort of way. Because here's what I've personally experienced. I'll scroll or I'll watch, or there's a reason why binge watching has become a thing. It's not just the storyline, people. It's because I'm watching it to distract myself from the things that I don't want to deal with in my life. And when the episode's done, I have time and space to remember the things in my life that I don't want to remember and deal with. So I want to watch the next one. And Netflix did this really brilliant thing where they said, hey, if you don't want to do anything in the next 5 seconds, we'll start the next episode for you. And it's not bad. We watched Netflix last night. Charlotte was awake, and we watched the Great British Baking Show, and it was a wonderful time together as a family. I'm not the pastor, and this ain't the church that's going to tell you, like, oh, you need to get rid of your phone and delete all the apps, and, like, you need to go back to paper and pencil and just go live in a monastery. That's not real. Jesus's invitation for you is not a command to go and forsake all things that are real to your life. His invitation is, if you will remain in me, I will remain in you, and you will bear much fruit. So your job is going to become more fruitful if it begins with a remaining in your relationship with Jesus. Your family is going to become more fruitful if the beginning of it is a remaining attached to the vine. And some of you in the room are just like, yeah, but you don't understand. Like, here's the deal. When I go on social media and I comment on that person's post, I'm going to change their mind. Like, my pests are actually good pests. My white mildew is healthy, and here I'm going to impact change in all this stuff, because if I just convince them that I'm right, then has that really, you're not going to be honest. I'm not even ask the question. You're not even going to be honest about it. If we will get rid of the counterfeit things that we've chosen to remain in and find our source of life and meaning and mental health and all those things, if we will get rid of the counterfeit things and not throw them away forever, but if we will stop relying on them to feed us with life and nourishment, if we will put them back in their proper positions of hobbies and enjoyments, like they're great things for you to enjoy in the proper place. It's all good and blessed and wonderful. Food is great. Go enjoy a great meal. But don't try to have that meal be your source of life and well-being. That's what he's communicating to the disciples, because all of those things will just leave you empty. And then, because Jesus is so kind, he's like, okay, I just spent like 4 verses explaining this principle to you. Let me spend 1 verse reiterating it in a really simple way, because I think you're going to need it. I am the vine, you are the branches, in case you had any question about the relationship. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And like, if you and I are being honest, I'd be like, you might be able to do something, but is it worth it? Does it have real value? Does it have meaning? Does it have lasting impact? Like, you might be able to do something. But I wonder how many of us, if we were honest about our lives and the things that we are producing, if we would be kind of like the butternut squash that I tried to grow, where it would sprout, and then I would see it beginning to grow, and I'm just like, yeah, we're so excited because in a week we might be able to harvest this thing. And then we go out a couple days later and it's gotten real soft and it started to decay. Like that's the picture of what it is when you try to remain and find your source of life in other things. You'll bear fruit, but they won't be enough to make you feel at peace. If you skip down to verse 8, you can see why this whole thing is important. Verse 8, it says this. So Jesus is explaining the whole thing. I'm the vine, you're the branches. This is to my Father's glory, that you would bear much fruit, showing yourself to be my disciples. And it's so beautiful because he says, hey, I want you to understand, when you bear much fruit, when you do well in life, when you flourish in life, that actually brings glory to God. The gardener is celebrated because the plants are producing so much fruit. He's saying, my Father wants you to bear fruit because that is how you show glory to him. Not only that, when you bear much fruit, that's also how people will know that you are disciples of Jesus, that you're followers of his teachings, that you are trying to align yourself with his way of life, that we are remaining in his presence. Somebody's gonna come up to you and be like, why is it that you have like this joy that you have? That's the fruit that you're producing, no matter what situation you're in, no matter what fight you're coming out of, no matter what budget meeting you're handling, no matter what parent-teacher conference, no matter what like discipline conversation you're having with a kid or like confrontation with a sibling. Like when you produce much fruit, people are gonna notice like, oh man, like this is going different than it used to go. Something is different here. And they're gonna, without saying it, they're gonna recognize like, oh man, you've been around Jesus. Like you're getting your sort. When I used to say those things, you used to react way differently. You're not reacting that way now. What's different? Well, I stopped doom scrolling, for one, and I've remained in my relationship with Jesus, and it's producing new fruit. So I have a new way of doing things in my life. So what do you do with this? What do you do with this invitation? How do you carry this out? Because none of us are going to go live in a monastery away from all the challenges of life. You don't need a monastery. What you need is a strategy on how to handle these situations. You just need a plan. How can you break it down and take steps into actually managing these realities? If you truly find your meaning in all the different things that you try to find your source of life in, it's gonna end poorly. But if you will connect to the vine, you're gonna see so much fruit. But you have to be diligent in two things. You gotta connect to the vine. That has to be your source, and you have to be honest with yourself about that. And you have to invite the gardener to do his work. Verse 1, I'm the vine, true vine, God's the gardener. You've gotta invite the gardener to come in and ask him, hey, gardener, I got all these branches and fruits and leaves and all these things going on. I really like these, and I really like these, and I really like these, but I think it might be a lot. What do you think we should prune? What do you think needs to be cut off? And invite the gardener to do his work. And he's gonna begin to peel back those layers so that you can bear much fruit. And the fact is, like, after the last 2 years, some of us we've stopped trusting the gardener. And we're pissed at the gardener. It's like, no, this is your fault, gardener. Like, that branch, I loved that branch, and you cut it off. Now I'm angry. I don't trust you anymore. That fruit, that was gonna be amazing. Why did you have to prune that? We get so mad. Here's the reality. That stuff wasn't providing you life in the long run anyway. So you've got to be honest with yourself. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to go into grief and loss and mourn when something is cut or when something is pruned or when you have to get like a treatment because you've got mold in your life. Like, it's okay to grieve those things, but to turn that into anger and project it onto the gardener or onto your spouse or your kid or your job or your situation, that's inappropriate. You got to get honest and look at it and be like, okay, well, I think that thing probably wasn't healthy for me. So the question is, how do we remain? That's the thing. If you remain in me and I remain in you, you can bear much fruit. How do we remain? What's remaining look like? There's a couple things that we can do today. Practical. Number one is this thing called a 1-minute pause. Now, I told you about the book. The author in the book, he had his team create an app, and it's called the 1-Minute Pause app. You can download that. We'll send that an email this week with all the resources we're talking about. I don't want you to try to find the app right now. It's just going to distract you. And here's the deal. The 1-minute pause in your busy day, in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, in the meeting, before the meeting, like wherever you're at, if you just feel flooded with all the complexity of the whole thing, the 1-minute pause, it's just 60 seconds. It's just long enough to take a couple breaths and to reaffirm your connection, your remaining in the vine. It's like, God, I want to control the outcome of all these situations. But that's me trying to bear fruit on my own. And so what I'm going to do, God, I give everything and everyone that I care about, I give it back to you because I'm remaining in you. So I'm going to do my best to produce fruit, but I'm going to remain in you so that fruit will be healthy and it'll be more than I could have ever imagined. So 1-minute pause throughout your day. It doesn't need to be this like religious thing of like first thing in the morning. I think that would be helpful, but you figure out where that thing applies. You can do the 1-minute pause 7 times a day, 37 times a day, whatever you need, wherever you're at. If you need to remind yourself, I need to remain in the vine and I need to invite the gardener to do his work. Let me just take a minute. I think all of us can find minutes where we need them most. Just take a minute and breathe. Everybody needs to do that. Some of us, we actually need to get around other healthy plants. Like right now, we're in a season of our church where we're about to launch a new season of life groups. Those are small communities of 10 to 12 people who get together, talk about the message, pray together, figure out like how to manage the weight of things that we're all carrying. And if you get around other healthy plants, they're gonna be able to help support you as well. You're gonna learn from each other. Like, oh man, the gardener pruned this for me the other day. That might be a good thing for you to consider too. Like, I don't know how this is gonna work. And you just get around other healthy plants. Here's the reality of my pumpkins that grew, right? They got super big and they had the moldy mildew. The pumpkins, the unhealthy pumpkins infected everything else. What relationships are you holding on to that continue to infect you? They continue to just cover you with moldy, mildewy dust and attract pests and just deal with all this. Gotta get away from it. You gotta invite the gardener to come in and be like, hey, I don't think this is healthy. Maybe you should cut this out. I freaking went in my backyard with a shovel and I just hacked that thing down. It's like, no pumpkins, you will not win this garden. It did its work though. The whole thing died. That's the end. Some of you need to join a life group. Some of you've been around here for a while. You actually need to get out of your comfort zone and you need to begin to lead a life group. We've got a good problem. We have a lot of people and not enough life groups. So if you will open up a life group this season, it's even better. We have a great deal for you. If you would say, hey, I want to actually help lead a community, we're not going to force you to go do that right away. You can go get paired with another life group leader and learn from them on how to do the thing so that next season, after Easter, you'll be healthy enough to go and bring other people around you. So lead a life group. Take a 1-minute pause, lead a life group. Here's, for those of you that want to go hard, like you want to get after it, the detox people. Where's the detox people in the room? 3 days, juice cleanse. Like you want to get after it? Next Sunday, we're going to introduce to the whole church 21 days of prayer, fasting, and Bible reading. Starting, I think it's the 17th, whatever that Monday is after next Sunday, we're gonna go for 21 days together as a community of people. We've got a journal for you, and we're gonna help everybody who wants to go hard after it. Like, we wanna aggressively handle these things. For 21 days, you can detox all of it. The pruning, the cutting, just handle it all at once. Rip the Band-Aid off. Just go after it. And if you'll commit yourself to those things, at the end of those 21 days, you're gonna see that your connection with the vine is so strong and so vibrant. And the next season, day 22, you're gonna start to see fruit produce in your life that you never thought was possible. So come on the journey with us for 21 days and see what God will do. See what the gardener will produce in your life at the end of that journey. That's going to start next Sunday. So even this week, start praying and asking the gardener, like, hey, what do I need to give up? What's just been getting in the way that I need to give up for 21 days? Not forever, just 21 days. I'll give that thing up. Is it food? Is it apps? Is it streaming? Is it just like the amount of time I spend researching things? Like what do I need to give up for 21 days so I can have more time to connect to the vine? And for all of us, for our city church, if we would go on this journey together, like online, in person, like everybody, can you imagine what our church family would look like? 21 days. Well, add 7, 28 days from now, because we're going to start it next week. Can you imagine what it would look like in February, in March, if we would be diligent to the practice of remaining in the vine and inviting the gardener to do his work, to prune and to cut? We would bring him glory, we would bear much fruit, and people would look at you and be like, there's something different going on. There is something different about you because the fruit you're producing, it's not rotten and gross and moldy. It's vibrant and delicious and amazing. Like, how'd that happen? What'd you change? What'd you do? Where'd you get this from? What detox are you on? Give me your plan. I want to be a part of it. That's the journey. And that is how we can impact not only like our church family, but our city, Corona, like all the other places that we impact around the world, the people who watch from different states. Like, you can impact your family. Can you imagine your relationship with your spouse and your kids after doing this for 21 days? Can you imagine the clarity when you step into that board meeting to introduce a new idea, the command of the room that you would have after detoxing all the mess? Can you imagine the creative ideas you would have for the new business? Can you imagine the way that your fight is gonna go with your spouse the next time that fight comes up? It'll go differently than it was before. Just imagine the relationship with your neighbors. Like, how would all these things be different if we as a church family would do the things that Jesus said and we would just say, hey, we're gonna remain in you because you're already remaining, and we're gonna invite the gardener to come in and do his work. That's how we can change the world together as a church family. So I would ask you, commit to being here for the next many weeks as we finish out the series, Get Your Life Back, because at the end of it, I think you're gonna see that you got your life back. Today, one of the ways that I wanna end the service is I want us to take communion. You should have gotten a little communion cup as you came in. It's this little like break if emergency communion is needed cup, like super handy, super sanitary. They can be kind of hard to open up. So that top layer should just get you the wafer. If you can't handle it, find somebody with nails next to you and it's gonna be great. So you can do that thing. But we're gonna take communion in just a moment. You don't need to open it right now. But I couldn't think of a better way to end the message and to begin the series by taking communion, because this unique practice is what Jesus gave us to remember his death and resurrection. And it's through Jesus' death and resurrection that we have access to the true vine. So as we wrap up today and we get ready to go into the rest of the week that we have, we're gonna take communion together to remember Jesus' body was broken for us, his blood was poured out for us, and it's that sacrifice that allowed us, that invited us into relationship with him, to be able to remain with the vine, to be able to have access to the gardener, to be able to bear much fruit. So if you don't have a communion cup, you can raise your hand. I saw some communion getting passed out. If you want one, go ahead and take it. But right now, as we get ready to take communion, Scripture's clear that you shouldn't take communion in an unworthy way. What's that mean? What it means is this isn't something just to be like taken like a snack. I'm a pastor's kid. When I grew up and we would do like church, after church, I would go into the pastor's office, who was my dad, and I would find the loaf of bread and the grape juice, and I would just go to town. Like, it was the greatest snack after church. That's an unworthy way. Another unworthy way is like if you don't take time to actually invite the gardener to speak to you about what's going on in your life. So right now, we're gonna do the 1 minute pause together. We're gonna do 1 minute. So whatever you need to do, just pause, close your eyes, and to yourself, just invite the gardener in. You can even say like to yourself in your mind, in your heart, you can just say like, God, I give everything and everyone in my life back to you. I want to remain in you, and I want you to do your work in me. What do you want to prune? What do you want to cut? How is it that I can begin to bear much fruit? You can go ahead and take your communion cup, open that top layer. Pull out the little wafer. It's going to taste a little bit like cardboard. It's okay. One of the symbols that we do to remember and celebrate like Jesus' sacrifices, we actually break the wafer. So this is Jesus' body. It represents his body that was broken for you and for me, that we would have access. This is how we remember that we are so loved, that God would send his son to die for you and I, that we would have access to remain in the true vine, not the counterfeit vine. So Jesus, we thank you for your sacrifice, and we take this in remembrance of your body being broken. You can go to the next layer, the little juice. This is a representation of Jesus' blood being poured out. It's his blood that's poured out that allows us to recognize that not only are we loved, but we're forgiven. This represents forgiveness. Whatever you think is untouchable, whatever you think is too far beyond, whatever you think is still secret and unknown, this to you should symbolize you are so loved and you are so forgiven from all of it. Doesn't matter what it is. I am so loved. I am so forgiven. Let's drink. Jesus, we thank you so much for your sacrifice, that we would have access to relationship with you. And today, as we took communion to celebrate your death and your resurrection, to reaffirm the relationship that we have with you, to recognize the opportunity to connect to the true vine and the pause, the moment of opening up to invite in the gardener. We just ask that these things would be solidified in our hearts and in our minds for the week ahead, that this word would not be something that would make us feel good today or be a quick fix, but we would actually carry this word into our Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, that we would carry it into the weeks and the months and the years ahead, that we would carry it into the fights and arguments and budget meetings and board meetings and school meetings and sports meetings, that these principles would begin to impact every area of our life, that we could do the thing that you wanted for us in the first place, that we would bear much fruit, and that people would recognize something's different about us because of that. I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. 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 Well, our city, I am so excited next week to continue the series, Get Your Life Back. It's going to be a phenomenal time. Check your email this week for all the resources to help you through the next couple weeks of what we're going to be talking about. We've got some trash bins as you leave if you want to take those little communion cups with you. I love you guys so much. God bless. We'll see you soon.